The hospital room was quiet, almost unbearably so, except for the steady beeping of monitors. Outside, the world carried on as usual, unaware of the life teetering on the edge of death inside room 504. Sarah Aldridge, a name known in boardrooms across the country, lay motionless, her body fragile beneath the pristine white sheets. The air was heavy with the weight of panic masked by professionalism. Doctors shuffled in and out, their faces tight with tension, but despite every effort, medications, transfusions, experimental treatments, nothing seemed to work. And then came David Carter. He wasn't a renowned doctor, a billionaire philanthropist, or even someone known in the corporate world. He was a single dad, a veteran who had seen more battles on foreign soil than most could imagine. He worked nights as a security guard at the hospital, making just enough to support his 7-year-old daughter, Lily. Life had taught him patience, sacrifice, and humility. But it had never prepared him for the moment he walked into room 504. David was on his usual late-night rounds when the nurse called him over. "Mr. Carter, we might need you here," she whispered, her voice tight. "It's unusual. They've exhausted every option. The only thing left is a blood transfusion, but her type is extremely rare. We can't find a match." David frowned. "You want me to? You might be our only hope," she admitted. He had no idea why. Doctors weren't supposed to rely on a security guard for life-saving decisions, but there was something in their desperation that made him act without thinking. "I'll do it," he said simply. They took him to a small lab for testing. Within minutes, the results came back. A perfect match. David's blood could save her. The odds were astronomical. Out of millions, the compatibility was exact. "Are you sure?" he asked the attending physician, staring at the fragile woman lying before him. The doctor nodded grimly. "It's the only chance she has. You have the power to save her life." David swallowed, feeling the weight of responsibility pressing down on him. He didn't hesitate. He had been trained to act under pressure, to put others before himself. But this wasn't a battlefield. It was a hospital room, and the stakes felt somehow more personal. He rolled up his sleeves and followed the nurse to the transfusion room. As the blood flowed into Sarah's veins, David watched closely, not daring to blink. Minutes felt like hours. Then, slowly, almost imperceptibly at first, her fingers twitched. Her eyelids fluttered. A faint cough escaped her lips. The monitors that had been a symphony of warning began to stabilize. The medical team exchanged stunned glances. "It's working," one of them whispered. David exhaled, a tension he hadn't realized he was holding leaving his body. He looked at her now, fragile yet alive, and felt an unexpected surge of emotion. The world outside the hospital could wait. At this moment, nothing else mattered. Over the next few days, Sarah's recovery was miraculous. She was the talk of the hospital, a story of survival that seemed almost too good to be true. The media caught wind of the incident, but no one could comprehend the quiet hero behind her second chance at life. David remained in the background, quietly watching over her. It wasn't long before Sarah insisted on meeting him properly. She wanted to thank the man who had saved her life. Their first encounter was awkward. She was used to the power and influence her wealth and position commanded. He was used to living a life invisible to the world, where kindness was the currency and heroism was measured in small, uncelebrated moments. "I don't know how to thank you," Sarah said softly, her voice shaky. You saved my life." David shrugged, his hands stuffed into his jacket pockets. "You do the same for anyone," he said. "I just happen to be the right blood type." Sarah laughed, a sound that was tentative at first, then more genuine. "You make it sound so simple, but it's not. Most people, they would have hesitated. Or walked away. You didn't. That means more than you know." And something about her sincerity struck him. For the first time in years, David didn't feel the distance that life had built between him and the rest of the world. He saw vulnerability, strength, and humanity all at once, and he felt drawn to it. In the following weeks, David visited her regularly. Their conversations began formally, updates on her health, questions about her comfort, but soon they turned personal. He told her about Lily, about the nights he spent tucking her into bed after working double shifts. He shared stories from his time in the military, the small acts of courage that went unnoticed, the moments of loss that shaped him. Sarah listened, captivated not by the tales themselves but by the quiet strength behind them. She had lived her life surrounded by power, authority, and calculated decisions. David's world was different, messy, real, and honest in a way she hadn't experienced before. One evening, as the sun dipped behind the city skyline, painting the hospital room in warm hues, Sarah turned to him. "I don't know how to explain this, but I feel like I've known you forever. You've given me something I didn't even know I was missing." David's gaze softened. He hadn't expected this, her openness, the raw emotion she displayed, but he didn't step back. He reached out, gently touching her hand. "I'm glad you're here," he said quietly. The weeks turned into months, and Sarah's health fully returned. But something had changed between them. There was a subtle shift, a connection deeper than gratitude or friendship. They began spending time outside the hospital, in cafes, parks, and quiet corners of the city where the world didn't notice them. She saw the joy in him as he played with Lily, the tenderness that emerged when he read bedtime stories aloud. He saw the vulnerability in her laughter, the weight she carried behind her poised smile, and the humanity beneath the CEO title. Then came a moment that neither of them could have anticipated. Sarah's company faced a crisis, a major scandal that threatened to ruin everything she had built. The board called for her resignation. The media was relentless. She felt the familiar pull of isolation, the burden of leadership crushing her again. David didn't hesitate. He stood by her side through every interview, every meeting, every moment of doubt. He reminded her of the strength she had, the lives she impacted, and the difference she made. "You're not alone," he said. "You never have to be." And in that shared vulnerability, a realization struck them both. Their bond was more than circumstance, more than gratitude. It was respect, admiration, and an unspoken love that had grown quietly but persistently. One evening, as they walked along the river near her penthouse, the city lights reflecting in the water, Sarah stopped and faced him. "David, I can't imagine my life without you," she admitted, her voice trembling. "You saved my life, yes. But more than that, you've given me hope, joy, love, all in ways I didn't know I could feel." David took her hands in his, feeling the warmth and certainty that had been building between them. "Sarah, you saved me too," he said. "Not with blood or medicine, but with your trust. You reminded me that even after all the battles I've fought, there's a life worth living beyond survival. And that life, it's with you." They stood there, the world around them fading into insignificance. A life once filled with struggle and quiet heroism had intertwined with one of wealth, responsibility, and vulnerability, creating something neither had expected but both desperately needed. From that night on, their lives were no longer separate paths intersecting by chance. They were a shared journey, one built on the quiet heroism of selflessness, the power of compassion, and the kind of love that emerges from witnessing another person's humanity in its rawest form. David continued to raise Lily with the same dedication, now with Sarah by his side, embracing the chaos and laughter that filled their home. Sarah learned to let go of rigid control, discovering joy in small, imperfect moments, and realizing that strength was not just in power but in connection. The hospital, the transfusion, the rare compatibility, they were catalysts, not just for survival but for transformation. A single act of selfless courage had not only saved a life but had intertwined destinies in ways no one could have predicted. And though the world outside may have continued in its usual rhythm, in their hearts, everything had changed. They had found hope where despair had once loomed, love where there was only gratitude, and a reminder that even the simplest acts of kindness can ripple into extraordinary consequences. David and Sarah's story became more than a tale of survival. It became a testament to the quiet heroes among us, the ones who act not for recognition but because it is the right thing to do. It was a story of second chances, of lives rebuilt, and of hearts opening in ways no one anticipated, proving that sometimes, the most powerful medicine is not in the blood, but in the humanity we extend to one another.